Now Santos looking up. To the right. Ah! What a dart!
Glory to Columbus. Go, go Columbus. Glory to Columbus. Here we go. This is the Crew Review with your host named Andrew. Glory to Columbus. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Crew Review Podcast, a Columbus Crew postgame show where me and another writer from Massive Report review the Crew. I'm your host, Andrew Atkins, and joining me today is a very special co-host. He's a writer for Massive Report. He's the assistant coach at Northwest Nazarene University. He is the most socially distant co-host we've ever had. Ironically, at 1,996 miles away, he is none other than Adam Miller. Adam, how you doing today?
I'm doing much better now that the game is over. Happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I am having a panic attack right now. My heart is racing. I'm having trouble getting calmed down from that one. That was frightening.
It was reminiscent of the Crew of 2019 in terms of almost blowing some leads late, but 2020 is a new year, and we'll take 3 points for sure.
We will indeed. Well, Adam, introductions out of the way.
Yeah.
We have to get right into our first segment of the night. A little thing I like to call emotional overreactions. So I ask you to shut off that analytical side of your brain, reach down into your heart, pretend that you're on Twitter, and spew out the first thing that comes to your mind.
I have two. The first is one that's been said on this pod a couple of times. The Crew are definitely winning MLS Cup. And the second is that we have the best coaching staff and front office staff in all of Major League Soccer, hands down. The signings that we've made have been very impactful, and there certainly seems to be a plan that's coming together. So it's very exciting.
I'm not going to argue with either of those points. My honest emotional overreaction for this game is just pure emotion. I'm a wreck right now. That game had me so stressed out, so freaked out, just anxious for the vast majority of it. I'm not going to keep giving the emotional overreaction of we're going to win the cup, because that's just my emotional overreaction to the entire season.
Okay.
So I don't know what overreaction to give. I'm a mess with that game. That game had me stressed out. So my emotional overreaction is just a mixture of tears and laughter. We'll go with that.
We'll take it.
That out of the way, emotions aside, it's time to move on to the Crew Review. For Columbus Crew SC taking on the looniest of all MLS teams, the Loons, Minnesota United. The starting 11 for Crew tonight. It's the most confident I've been in a starting 11 for a while. I felt pretty darn good seeing it. In goal, we had Eloy Room. In defense, we had Milton Valenzuela. Josh Williams was back. Jonathan Mensah. Harrison Awful. Moving up to the defensive midfield, we had Artur and Fatai Alashe, who's still filling in for Darlington Nagbe, who get well soon. Then moving up into the attacking midfield, we had Pedro Santos, Lucas Zelarayan back in the starting role. That felt good.
So
Luis
good.
Diaz, and the tip of the iceberg, the captain of the ship. Not really the captain, though. Jossie Zardes. How do you feel about the starting 11 tonight?
Loved it. It's good to see Zelarayan back in the starting 11. Hopefully, all healed up. I thought he was very good tonight. He looked like his old self. But it's good to see some familiar faces getting back in the lineup, and hopefully, Mr. Nagbe is back out there sooner than later. Especially with the tough stretch of games coming up down the road.
We need him. We need him for sure. And the starting 11 was, like I said, it was the best one we've had in a while. It started to feel more like how it's supposed to be. But things changed pretty quickly into the game because Fatai Alashe, not really sure what happened with him, but he goes down, and Sebastian Berhalter is called upon to fill his shoes.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know. They may have mentioned it in the broadcast. I didn't see the injury to Alashe. Obviously, seems serious enough for him to kind of come off the field and be replaced by Berhalter. It is concerning. I thought Alashe has been really good in the past couple games with Nagby's absence, but hopefully he's okay. And I think I really like Berhalter, but it's good to have depth and maybe some more experience in the center of the park.
And I like Berhalter and I like Alashe. And the thing we talked about a little bit last week, it's almost unfair for the guys in that position because unless you are phenomenal, you're a step down from Darlington Nagby. Now, I think Alashe has been a serviceable replacement. I think Berhalter, he's got some work to do, but he's young and he has promise.
That's right. I agree 100%. I actually think I'm really excited for Berhalter because he's going to have a couple years learning from those guys as well, which I think is an exciting prospect. I mean, obviously, Porter and the front office felt that he was ready to make the jump from college ball up to the pros. So he's there for a reason, and I think he's been good in just about every game he's played, and the opportunity to learn from Artur and Nagby and Alashe as well, who's been around the league, I think is something that's going to be really good for him down the road and for the Crew as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this was kind of a flip-flop of how we're used to seeing the Crew play this year. The first half, man, our defense was just stellar. They were a brick wall. It was impossible for Minnesota to penetrate. And our offense, they didn't take the typical 45 to 50 minutes it takes them to find the back of the net. We came out swinging. 24th minute, Diaz bends this great cross into the box. It's inches in front of Jossie as he lunges for it. Not a goal, but a great chance.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the better chances of the game. Obviously, that didn't get put in the back of the net. The Crew are starting to do something really interesting with Diaz, where instead of staying out all the way on the touchline, they kind of will bring him in a little bit more narrow and try and play in behind the opposition's outside back, which is a good spot for him. Obviously, with his pace, they had a similar chance just recently in the last match as well, where Zardes just missed. It was kind of a poor ball from Diaz, but I think that's something we'll continue to see as he continues to grow too, as he'll come inside a little bit more and try and get him behind the defense that way.
Right. Well, it wasn't long after that, 4 minutes to be exact. Williams passes the ball off to Santos. Santos just peeks up just a second, just long enough to spot an opening. He lobs the ball into the goal box. In comes Zelarayan with this fantastic run, incredible diving header, one of the most beautiful goals of the season, 1-0 Crew.
Beautiful. It was a great build-up play. I think it was one of the most beautiful, one of the most unexpected. I'm not sure if there's a lot of guys who had Zelarayan scoring with his head
No.
on their better sheet going into this game. But beautiful goal, great finish, great ball from Santos. So good at those balls into the box. And, like you said, it's good to see those things happening in the first half now.
Yeah, it was refreshing. And Santos, man, it was a great assist there. But the other thing he was doing all first half was he was relentless with his defense. I mean, Minnesota could not do anything without Santos right there on their back. Just didn't give up on any ball. Stayed on Minnesota like I haven't seen from him before, and he was a huge impact in the first half.
Yeah, I think Santos, the most underrated part of his game, I think, is actually his defending. Like you're saying, his ability to put pressure on specifically teams' outside backs. And the other thing he's really good at is what Coach Porter would call counter pressing right after the Crew lose it, especially if it's near Santos. He's really good at applying pressure, trying to win it back. And I think it's something that goes unnoticed, but it's a big reason why the Crew aren't giving up a ton of goals is because they really are defending from the front all the way to the back, and Santos is a big part of that.
Yeah, all of Crew had a chance to shine. The attack, everybody had their moments. Right before half, Diaz draws a penalty in stoppage time. Now, Zelarayan takes the penalty, and he skies it. It was pretty disappointing. We had a chance to go 2 up at half, which, as we see later, would have been really useful. Now, here's my thought on the penalty. Obviously, skying a penalty, it's disappointing. It's happened to Diaz twice now where he draws a penalty and it gets skied. First time by Jossie, this time by Zelarayan. What I was really hoping when I saw him go down for that penalty is that they would give Diaz the penalty. Let Diaz take the penalty, because I think if Diaz could just settle down a hair, he will move from good to great. And I think getting that first goal is what he needs to just calm him down a bit. So I was really hoping they'd give him the chance. They didn't. It didn't happen, but regardless, good job drawing the foul. Good job drawing the penalty.
Yeah, and it's good. We're fortunate to be able to look at that and kind of chuckle at it, especially considering what kind of happened at the end of the game there. It would have been nice to maybe have two going into halftime. I'm all on board. I don't care who takes it, to be frank. As long as they can put it on goal, they'll be, one of the best. Even if it gets saved, if it's on target, it'll be the best penalty that the Crew have taken so far in regular season play. So something about that end, maybe on the stage end of the stadium, where people just tend to sky penalties. I don't know.
Penalties are a crux of the Crew this season. The first loss of the year, not in the regular season, but it was MLS's back tournament, and it was penalty kicks. And then we've had a couple of pretty bad misses for penalties, where I'm hoping that we can, I don't know, just drill that in practice over and over again, because what I don't want to see is us get to the MLS Cup and lose it on penalty kicks.
That's right. Yeah, I think like I said, we're fortunate that we can laugh about it now. I'm sure it's something that will be addressed at some point. I don't know if it's going to be sooner rather than later, but I would hope that well before MLS Cup and the playoffs that the penalty kick situation is being sorted out in training, and guys are maybe feeling a little bit more confident when they step up to the spot.
Although I will say the rate of this schedule, who knows when they have time to train, because they're pretty much playing games as much as they'd be practicing.
That's right. I mean, it's crazy. I appreciate the MLS trying to get the games back on the schedule, but there's a lot of soccer coming up and not a lot of days. So
Right.
We'll see.
Moving on to the second half, Minnesota actually comes out of the second half looking a little more dangerous. It was, like I said, it was kind of an inverse of what we're used to seeing. Normally, the Crew come out of the gates in the second half just firing on all cylinders. About 10 or so minutes into the second half, I don't know if it's Lod or Ludd. I think he was pronouncing it Ludd, Robin Ludd for Minnesota. He gets a cross in, but it's kind of weak and Room gets to it. But we were seeing a little more danger moving into the second half. The 58th minute, Diaz draws a free kick right outside of the penalty box. Santos takes it, and the only reason it was a shot on goal, but it was handled pretty well by Minnesota. No real danger there. But the only reason I made a note of it is Santos's shot from outside of the penalty box was better than Zelarayan's penalty kick.
That's right. I mean, at least he put it on target at this point. That's what we're hoping for. I'm surprised Zelarayan didn't take it, though. That's kind of a similar spot to where he scored against our neighbors to the south in Orlando. So I would have liked to see him maybe try and replicate that again.
I would have too. I thought he was going to take it.
Yeah.
But, Santos, it was a good shot. If anybody, I don't know if Zelarayan could have done much better than Santos. It was good goalkeeping. And to talk about the goalkeeping real quick for Minnesota, they're on their third string goalkeeper right now.
Yeah.
And the kid reminds me of a young Zach Steffen. Well, yeah. I say young Zach Steffen, but Zach Steffen's pretty young himself. But he wasn't supposed to be their starter. He's ended up being their starter. Dane St. Clair is his name. I was drawing a blank for his name. The kid has a presence, a swagger about him, and a very good keeper.
Very good. I think he's one of the better young keepers in the league, just from what he's shown, just in the couple games he's played so far. I think he went to school at Maryland, which is obviously a soccer powerhouse. And at the college level, I think he's good, super athletic, seems to have a good technical ability. But I think the biggest thing, like you're saying, is he doesn't really look like a young goalkeeper in the MLS. He carries himself really well. He's got a good presence, and I think certainly goes a long way, not only for yourself, but for the guys in front of you to have some confidence in you. So I think he might be maybe one to circle for next couple of years in the MLS.
Mm-hmm. And Minnesota dealing with something very similar to Crew and injuries, forcing a lot of changes for them, a lot of lineup changes. They brought in Kai Kamara. This was his first game for them. And interesting little note here. I was trying to figure out, I was like, okay, who all on this team played with Kai? And I'm looking, and it's Harrison Awful. He's the only one. Porter cleaned house, man. Porter cleaned house.
That's right. Yeah, I think, well, that's going back to what I said in the beginning. I think that's what Porter in the front office has done they've gotten the guys that they want for their system, and, we're reaping the rewards of that. But it's always interesting to see Kai Kamara come back to Columbus.
And played very well.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was their most dangerous player. He's certainly, as Crew fans will well know, he's really, really dangerous in the air. Really good when he's got good service. I thought the Crew did a good job of limiting Minnesota's options when they're serving the ball into him. And I think he had one dangerous header in the first half, kind of on a high looping ball, but there's 3-4 Crew guys around him, and Room was able to make a comfortable save. But, he, no matter where he goes, part of the reason why he's played so many places is because he's dangerous. And, if you put the ball in the net, people are going to want you on your team.
Right. Speaking of putting the ball in the net, good segue there. 70th minute, Santos is coming in. He jukes left, jukes right, and gets this shot right above St. Clair. St. Clair gets his hands on it, but it pops it above him. Goal, beautiful goal. Both the goals Columbus scored today, just gorgeous goals. Beautiful. And that brings us up 2-0.
That's right. Yeah, 2-0. I, for one, thought the game was done and dusted right there. Santos was excellent today. Great move, great finish. I mean, pure pace, beating St. Clair kind of to that spot in the top corner near post. Difficult ball to save for sure, but I thought it was well deserved at the time. And props to Santos. He's been great recently, and beautiful goal, one that'll probably be on the MLS Goal of the Week voting boards maybe a little bit later.
Yeah, and you said you thought the game was done and dusted. Not too much longer, Kai Kamara is subbed off, and I thought, oh, thank God. Thank God this game can be over, because Kai, he had some good chances. He was looking good. He was moving good. Kai is a presence. Kai is real good at soccer is what Kai is. Yeah. And so I thought, good. Okay, we can wrap this up. We got us a win. We're moving on to Toronto. Not so fast. 88th minute, Minnesota gets a really good cross in. Robin Lod gets his left foot on the ball, and he scores. And I actually wrote this up in my pre-match article for Master Report. Minnesota have yet to lose a game that Robin Lod scored in, and that had me real scared.
Yeah, and thank goodness they decided to do it for the first time tonight. I mean, it was, like I said, it's reminiscent of the Crew from last year, giving up goals late in devastating fashion. And, the first one that actually counted is the one we're talking about now. I'm sure we'll get to maybe the more contentious one and certainly more heartbreaking one. But got to be addressed, I think, by Coach Porter. He's probably not thrilled with giving up one goal that counted and one that didn't late. But, hopefully something that doesn't recur very often the rest of 2020.
Yeah. And it's not much longer. The 92nd minute, Minnesota get a breakaway counterattack that's looking really dangerous. And I wrote a note about this because I thought Artur just saved the game. Artur comes running up and knocks over the Minnesota player with the ball, takes the yellow card. That is how you effectively draw a foul. Sometimes it is worth getting a yellow card to save the game, and that's what I feel like Artur did. That was beautiful play by Artur. Alas, it was for nothing because it puts Minnesota at a free kick. Minnesota real dangerous on those set pieces, and they take the free kick, get ahead on it, and they score. Or do they? This is the debate of the game. The flag is up. They go to VAR. VAR says no goal. What do you think about the call? Because I'm a Crew homer. I love me some Crew. If I were Minnesota, I would be calling all kinds of shenanigans on that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, thankfully, the VAR, upheld the no goal decision. Looking at the replay, man, if I was a Minnesota fan, I would be furious. I think he looks really, really close to being onside. Um, I don't know. I would be furious. I'm obviously glad for the way that it worked out, but yeah,
And
Minnesota.
I think VAR and the bylaws, it has to be clear and obvious that the call on the field was wrong. I think if the call on the field was goal and they went to VAR, they would not have overturned the goal.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. First of all, in the bylaws, and I think that either way, there was no overturning whatever was called on the field given that replay. So, thankfully, the flag went up.
Crew got very lucky tonight. Very lucky
My
tonight.
lucky stars that the flag went up. But I think the bigger issue, in my opinion, is the Crew have been really bad at defending set pieces. In my opinion, I know they haven't given up a lot of goals, but I think that's an area teams like Minnesota, especially come playoff time, are going to be looking to beat the Crew at set pieces and nick a goal that way. So hopefully, maybe this is a way to raise a red flag to the Crew players and coaching staff without costing us any points.
Yeah, it's a lesson learned without having to actually suffer the consequences.
Right.
They say no goal. Seconds later, final whistle blows. Columbus Crew 2, Minnesota United 1. We barely got out of there. We barely got out of there with 3 points. And I will say, we talked a little bit. Okay, we were talking a little bit back and forth before the pod, and we were discussing that we were both feeling just anxiety through this match, and we were wondering why, because Columbus is top of the league still. They've been there. They haven't moved. But what I think it is as Crew fans, we have been hurt so many times. And we have seen so many late goals, so many games where we should not have lost that we lose in the 88th minute in stoppage time. And as we were talking about the fact that we need to learn to trust this team is not hurting us, it all started to fall apart to the point where it's like, okay, let's stop talking. Let's stop talking right now because this is going bad. But, credit where it's due, that is the difference in the 2020 Crew. We have historically been a team that can score goals and can go into halftime with leads or can establish a lead, but we haven't been holding on to those kind of leads. Like 2019, it happened over and over and over again to the point where when we are the best team in the league, which I've debated back and forth whether or not I think it should have an asterisk. I think games like today are starting to prove that no, we are as good as build. And I think it's just going to take time for Columbus Crew to build up that optimism in a fan base that has been so pessimistic.
That's right. I mean, naturally, we were, like you said, we were talking about it. Naturally, I know myself and you, and I'm sure several other Crew fans out there are just naturally pessimistic about end game situations, especially given last year. It could have gone the other way tonight. I think 2020 is a different year. I hope I'm not jinxing it. We almost jinxed it, when we were talking before we started recording here during the game. So our hands up on that one, but hopefully the Crew continue to prove us right in saying that 2020 is a different year. And the other thing that I'll add is hopefully it's not just 2020. I think we're built for a long haul of success here. So, next couple of years of hopefully continuing to be at or near the top of the league. Certainly we're going to continue going here in 2020, focus on now. But I think, given the players and the coaching staff and everything else, hopefully we can continue to maybe discourage some of that pessimistic behavior that's built up over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Well, with the win, and it was a win, whether it should have been a win or not, it was. Columbus now 9 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss. We are 5 points ahead of Orlando City still in the Eastern Conference, and 5 points ahead of Orlando City in the Supporter Shield standings. It feels really good to start building a buffer.
So good. Build the buffer up. Keep it going. We've got a tough stretch coming up. So the more points, like you said, regardless of what should or shouldn't have been called, we get 3 points and we'll continue to build that buffer and, build it up as high as we can.
And talking about the stretch we have coming up, realistically, we have seen a lot of injuries. We have a lot of matches in a month span. We have 9 matches to get through. I think it's safe to say that we have to make a decision. Well, Columbus Crew has to make a decision. Do we focus on the Supporter Shield or do we focus on the MLS Cup? Because at this point, I think we could pretty much lose the rest of the season and we're making the playoffs. We have built ourselves that luxury. When we move forward, the games approaching the playoffs where we're playing 2 to 3 games a week, do we begin to see players like Berhalter starting? Do we see Chris Cadden coming back? Do we see Fernando Adi playing 90 minutes instead of Jossie Zardes? Do we see Zelarayan being rested? Do we see Caleb Porter start to manage who is playing the majority of minutes going into the playoffs? Or do we see a focus, as it is right now, on just win every game, get that Supporter Shield as well? What do you think? Do you think we're going to start seeing some player management moving into the back half of the season?
Yeah, I think we absolutely will. I hope that we do, frankly. I think it will sometimes mean maybe a lesser performance, maybe drop some points here or there, but I think Porter is the ultimate pragmatist. He will, he's going to rest his guys. And I think it's an important part of even being in a position to win games. It's one thing to roll out your best 11. It's another thing to roll out an exhausted best 11 against these other MLS teams. I think there are some games in there where guys can rest and we'll still be able to be competitive. But frankly, I think we will, and I hope we do. I would much rather win MLS Cup than the Supporter Shield.
I agree.
And I think that, we've, like you've said, put ourselves in a great spot to where I don't think we certainly haven't clinched a playoff spot yet, but we're getting close. And I think that we should use that luxury to our advantage. I think using that and being able to rest guys is something that a lot of teams aren't going to be able to do. So I'd rather have a fresh and best starting 11 out there in MLS Cup than, when we play Montreal in a week or two.
I agree. And, we don't see a whole lot of defensive substitutions in Crew games. And maybe it's something where we just continue to roll out our strongest defense and just hope that they can grind out a point, whether it's 0-0 draws or 1-1 draws or, the Crew have been an exceptionally fun team to watch this year. Is it worth some boring games to make sure you have a healthy team moving into the playoffs? I think it is.
Yeah, and I think from a fan's perspective, a couple of boring 0-0 draws nobody will remember, but if we're successful in the playoffs, I think that's something that people will remember for a long time. So I assume and I hope that the Crew coaching staff is of that same mind and will do those things. So the Crew's defense is really solid and we're really deep. So I think it makes sense to rest guys and
I agree.
And still try and win some games that way.
And we have the advantage of the whole league's playing on this intense, crazy schedule. So we will most likely see other teams who are sitting pretty, looking like they have a good chance of moving into the playoffs. There's a very good chance they're going to play the same kind of play style of resting players and just trying to grind out the rest of the season and get into the playoffs healthy. So I think that about covers the game and the rest of the season and the postseason. And we might have got a little ahead of ourselves, but we're going to move on into the next segment of the night. It's the best and worst player of the night, but Columbus Crew's the greatest team the world's ever seen. You don't get to play for the Crew if you're not the best. So there is no worst, but there is a best and a best worst. So who is your best player of the match?
Pedro Santos by far. He's been exceptional lately, scored a lot of goals, scored a brilliant goal tonight, had a beautiful assist. We talked earlier about what he does on the defensive side of the ball. I think he is by far one of the most impactful players on the team. I think he's much better when we have the luxury of playing him out wide when Zelarayan can play in the midfield. But he's my best of the night, and I think he's been the best for a couple of games now.
No argument. Pedro Santos, my best of the night too. Zelarayan's goal was gorgeous, and
Beautiful.
That almost propelled him to my best just because how pretty it was. But then Pedro came out after that and scored a real pretty goal himself too, and Zelarayan also skied a penalty that you know,
That's right.
that can't be happening, especially at his level, especially at his caliber. Pedro Santos with the assist, with the goal, and the work he put in on defense tonight. He might even be my defender of the night. Pedro Santos was all over the place, a rock star, absolutely best. Now, that was easy, something I'm struggling with, and you might be struggling with. Who's your worst best tonight?
Yeah, it pains me to do it. I'm going to say Berhalter, just because I think I'm looking towards the end of the game. I think that we could have managed that a little bit better. I think on the counterattack that we mentioned, I think he kind of dove in a little bit early, maybe didn't fully understand or recognize the moment of the game, maybe to just kind of try and slow the counterattack down instead of when the ball leads to a foul, leads to the goal that doesn't count and all the VAR discussions, all that. It's harsh on my part to pick him. I did think he was pretty good other than that, but as a young player, like we said, it's a good way for him to kind of learn those lessons without being punished for them. So I'll go ahead and say Berhalter. I know you maybe might say the same thing as well. So maybe we're being a little bit harsh on him and a little bit too unanimous as a podcast, but
Yeah, you want debate. We need to argue about this. I'm gonna say Pedro Santos is my work now. Berhalter, it's hard. He's a kid. I mean, he's young, and he couldn't have expected to have to play the majority of this game. He was called upon. Who knows if he would have even been in the match, And he ends up having to play the majority of the match, and he's not a starter caliber player for the Crew this year. The starter caliber players for the Crew this year are great, though. This is a very good to great team that Columbus has assembled. So Berhalter just not quite at that level yet, but getting minutes and a lot of minutes with this team on games like tonight are what's going to take him to that next level. So it's a worst best, but it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's probably a good thing he got in there, and it's a good thing that he got this time because you could see that he is going to be a very good player moving forward in his MLS career. It's very young, and he's got a lot of promise, and I like to see him get minutes. I was actually hoping he'd start this match just because I want to see him get minutes. He didn't start the match, but he ended up playing the majority of it.
That's right, and I think he's going to get minutes down the stretch, especially we don't really know what the deal is with Fatai Alashe yet. Berhalter's next in line for that spot, so he's going to get minutes. He's going to continue to get better. Like I said, I'm really high on him. I think on the night he maybe just slipped up one or two too many times, especially in those late moments. But part of being a young pro is learning how to manage the games at the professional level. It's different than any level. Obviously, he's played at before, best of the best. The highest of stakes. So I think it's, he's certainly a bright spot for me, but on the night he, cost us maybe a little bit of a heartache there at the end. So
I agree. Well, Adam, that being said, you were my best co-host of the night, and you've earned yourself a plug. Where can these people find you?
Oh, wow. You can follow my Twitter. I think it's at @theAdamMiller01. My Instagram, I think, is the same handle there. So go ahead, give me a follow. Writing for Massive Report, tweeting all things Crew, making fun of all the bad teams in the MLS and enjoying being the best.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew Atkins SC. You can find this podcast on Twitter at Crew Review Pod. For all your Crew news, updates, analysis, go to massivereport.com. Follow them on Twitter at Massive Report. And don't forget, follow us, subscribe to us, rate us, review us. It helps out a lot, and we really appreciate it. The next game we will be reviewing is Saturday, 7:30 Eastern Time, the Trillium Cup, whatever that means, Toronto FC. What are your predictions, Adam?
I think it's going to be a weird one. We're away to Toronto, but I think we're playing at Red Bull Arena in New Jersey. Who knows where we're playing or why we're playing there.
Or what a Trillium Cup is.
Yeah, Trillium Cup, whatever. I'd like to win it because it's another trophy, but who knows what it means. Feels like a weird game to me. Both teams are at the top of the table. Both teams are coming off short weeks. I think it'll be maybe a little bit boring. I don't want to say that, but just given the way the two teams line up, I think I'll say 1-1 draw. Hopefully we win. I think it'll be a draw. as we kind of move forward into the next stage here. But here's to hoping that I'm wrong and we win.
Well, okay, so Toronto, yeah, this is probably the hardest game for me to predict so far. I have before the season, I predicted Columbus to go undefeated this year. We've only lost one, and it's one that we shouldn't have lost. It was against New York City with a silly defensive mistake. I'm gonna predict Toronto 2-1. Oh, it hurts. Oh, it hurts. It hurts so bad.
Why would you know that?
Crew's tired. We were showing it late in the game here, and it's a quick turnaround, and I got a bad feeling about it. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm giving Toronto this one 2-1, and I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, that's all we need to say about that.
I'm not crying. It's just been raining on my face. Moving on to the final segment of the night, a little thing I like to call #MyCrewReview. What I ask the listeners of this terrific podcast to do is leave your reviews. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you thought about the Crew. And that's exactly what it is. Just use #MyCrewReview on Twitter, and I will read your reviews live on the air. The first one comes from Jason Palmer at JDPalmer198301. Great Twitter handle. He says, Santos, best of the night because Peasy says so. No arguments from us.
No arguments here. Amen to that.
Thomas Costello at Thomas Costello says, this team is dangerous when their offense pieces are healthy. Lucas gives everyone space. Gasper, the unfriendly defender, isn't good at his job.
Listen, I think Luis Diaz has something against ball defenders between Gasper and Gutman for Cincinnati, just undressing those guys and getting around them. So
he's the master at embarrassing a defense.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start calling him the barber.
Sean Atkins at Chef Sean 1 says, I started watching in the last few minutes, not the best part of the game for us, but clutch offside call. Love that header from Zelarayan. Yeah, coming in at the last few minutes of this game, that's a tough time to pop in.
Yeah, depending on when you started watching, Sean, you might not have to. Might not be allowed to watch any more games.
That's very true. I think we're going to chalk this.
You are giving up goals.
We're going to chalk this late game performance off on Sean.
Yeah, we might have to have a separate conversation.
Patrick Speedy Flowers has our last one of the night. He's at Speedy_Flowers1. Says, one of my first games as a fan, but that was actually hella fun to watch. About to buy a jersey right now. Which one should I go with? Well, I'm rocking the first ever Columbus Crew MLS jersey right now. My second favorite kit, and I'm preparing for the stoning I'm about to receive. I love the For Columbus kit.
Oh, God.
I love it.
Well, here's what I'll say. First of all, welcome to the Columbus Crew family. I'm happy to have you.
Yes.
We do
not mind bandwagon fans.
No, please come on board.
Welcome all.
Room for everyone.
Your team is your team named FC Cincinnati and just an embarrassment? Come on over to Columbus. We're happy to have you.
Come on I-71 North. It's not that far a drive. But I'll say definitely don't buy the For Columbus kit. We need to burn those and banish them from existence. I like the all black one we had last year and this year. I think it's a nice little color piece there, but you can't go wrong with the banana kit either. I will say throw Zardes on the back of it. He'll be the coolest guy into any room you walk into.
Look, those light blue shorts were gorgeous. Okay.
The shorts are okay, but it's more associated with some unpleasant memories, to say the least.
I'm removing the owner from the jersey, okay?
Okay, fair point.
I like the jersey.
Fair
I
point.
appreciate the Crew reviews. That was a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much. And Adam, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. Always love talking about the Crew and especially about Crew wins.
Yeah, it was a blast. I hope you come back sometime.
Anytime.
As always, for Massive Report, I'm Andrew Atkins, and this has been the Crew Review. Glory to Columbus, go Crew, and we will see you next time when we review the Crew.